I just left a Zoom call from Australia, so it was fascinating to listen to Australians because it took me 5 minutes to understand what they were saying.
Well, welcome everybody. Welcome to this presentation. It's working from home, what? And we are all taken aback by that, and it certainly has changed from when it first started, when we thought it was only going to be for a couple of months, and now we're 7 or 8 months into it, and we're still working from home, which means we're still adjusting to whatever the new normal is. And I'm going to let somebody else in. Most businesses have had their employees working from home. Business owners have had to manage differently. They have to look at safety differently, and they have to pay attention to guidelines around payroll and sick leave, and handle a myriad of other issues, almost too many to keep track of, all while they're trying to take care of their own families and their own health. And so it's kind of the myriad of things that to take into consideration all at the same time. And we're making our way through it with the help of a variety of experts who are resources to us and give us some guidance. So today we're going to hear from not only myself, but 3 others who can shed light on some of what a business owner needs to know. And of course, this is sponsored by the Referral Center. What is the Resource Referral Center? We have a mission. Our mission is to have businesses flourish, the economy to be revived, and employment to go up, and all the businesses we serve to receive great value. And the purpose of tonight's presentation is to give you this information so then you can determine for yourself if you would like a referral to any of the resources that are going to be speaking on this call. And of course, that's all free to you. So feel free to ask away and to make connections, whether you need them now or in the future. There are going to be handouts. Each of our presenters has provided handouts for me to send out afterwards. Plus, we're recording, and everybody will get the recording. Plus, I'm going to send out a survey, and it's just like 4 or 5 questions. So it would be great if you answered that survey to keep us all on the track to better improvement. And so I also want to make you aware that we have another presentation coming up, most likely on November 17th, and it's going to be oriented toward security and crisis management. And then we're planning one for December as well. We are going to use the chat. If you all know how to use the chat, and you can open that up and you can send each other messages or send messages to the group. You can put resources in there. You can put your own contact information in there if you'd like, and certainly put questions in there for the panelists. And we're going to have a question and answer period at the end. So all those that haven't been answered yet, we will address, and we might get into a really good discussion like we did last time too. So the Resource Referral Center is led by myself, and that gentleman that you see named Michael Connolly, that's up in one of those squares. And I'm going to turn it over to him just a couple minutes to tell you some things about how he got started and where his passion is. Go right ahead, Mike.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you all for attending. Like I say, Jerry's very, very close to me. We've done some work, a lot of work together. But to just give you a heads up on what our center is about. It's actually a resource referral center, and that's in name only right now. What that means to us is that we've set this up and we've encountered and talked to a lot of different people because of the pandemic. The pandemic was an impetus for us to get involved with this. And what I wanted to see was people that didn't have anywhere to go. For the most part, they had their own business, and they were working their business, and they were working it the same as they worked it when everything fell apart. And then you had upheaval, and you had distress, and you had fear, and you had anxiety, which was a perfect boiling soup for opportunities. And I got a sense that there was an opportunity here that to help people. And so that sounds kind of cliche-ish, we can help people and this and that, but we're not talking about bread lines or something. We're talking about helping people find themselves again, find something new for the first time, able to try to do other business, whatever they can do, and reach out. And we made a platform where we say, listen, what we're going to do for you is we're not going to charge you anything. We're going to create a platform for you to communicate with each other, and there's no charge. You will be vetted, and we'll understand that you have integrity and you're caring and you're that kind of a person, and that's what we want on board. But we want somebody that wants to be with us and share with us and develop with us and develop with other people, whatever they want to develop. So it could be a new business. It could be expanding a business. It could be looking for dollars and cents for a new business, of which Jerry's put on a couple of clinics now for different things. This one's tonight, the same thing, different. It's all about, we want to get in front of people that don't have the means anymore. I want to say to you, they don't have the means. And so what we're living in is dreamland that we think everybody's okay. They're not okay. And my bet is not to take money away from people and charge them and just do those things. But my bet is that they need help. And Jerry and I said, we're going to help them. Now that sounds a little braggadocious, but it's true. We need to help people. And that was the basis for our company, RRG, and I will RRC. And I'll tell you this: I'm proud that everybody here came tonight, and proud of Jerry, and proud of what we're trying to do with people. But if you can get the word out there, our company's open to everybody. They can come in and they can take a place on our map, on our community map, and they will be able to sell or do whatever they want on that map together. That's just for me tonight. I want to thank everybody for being here tonight. Just excited I am. I'm excited about it. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Thank you very much. I'm going to ask you to put yourselves on mute, and I'm going to have one person speak at a time. And some of it's Q&A with me, and some of it is them going through some of their talking points. Certainly, Mike has got a lot of passion, and he's been a consultant most of his life in one way or another. And I too have got a background as an executive coach and a consultant and a business strategist and neuroscience-based communication specialist and all those kinds of things. What we want to do is get you to have the resources that you need. So the first thing we'd like to do is to talk about our three panelists. So Donna Ritchie has 25 years of HR experience in all kinds of organizations. She's currently director of HR at Cognify, and Cognify safeguards your world by providing video management software to optimize your business operations. And then we have Tiffany Donaldson. Tiffany is a New York employment business attorney. She graduated from the University of Miami School of Law, and she's had her own firm in New York since 2016. And then we have Mark Maxwell of Outside Technologies. He has 30 plus years experience in the IT industry, and 11 years have been in the area of cybersecurity and information security. And so welcome to the three of you. I'm going to chime in a few things because my business has a lot to do with what a business owner needs to pay attention to when they're managing a remote workforce too. But I'm going to start with Donna. In your role as director of HR, what issues come up now that everyone is working from home? And what changes have you made as a director of HR?
All right, so I'm just going to throw up this slide here and get going, so make it easier. I have some pictures here today. So I think this picture of this gentleman is very telling. This is kind of how we all kind of feel today, I think. And I think what's really important, especially when you're dealing with the employees, and something that's come up a lot with us, is to let people know that what they're feeling is, it's okay. It's okay and it's normal. And we're dealing with a very abnormal situation. And there's a lot of different, they say there's fatigue in the workplace, there's fatigue in our life, there's fatigue in the news. So if you look at all these different fatigues here, you know, the bottom line, I think I have it in this box here, you're wrestling with these intense motions day after day with no end date. You know, as humans, if we have an end date, we're okay. Like, I'm going to do this exercise routine for the next, 3 months. I'm going to be done. I'm going to be fit. It's great. But there's no end date, and it gets very draining. And that's what's draining a lot of us, is not having the end date. Because as humans, we're resilient and we can handle a lot of things. So we need to change the way we think. We need to change the way we respond to employees. And one thing that I've found that has been very helpful is using empathetic leadership. And empathetic leadership is very, these are very simple tasks, very simple things to think about. And they're very, I want to say, I have the word work human, but they're very human emotions. I know when I started working, the first thing I was told in HR to be successful, you got to learn to separate work and the employee's personal life. And now that's just completely thrown out the window, in my opinion. We need to really know who our employees are in order to get through this. And we need to really appreciate and understand what they're going through. So some of the things that you can do as a leader, or even in your business with your clients, right, is remember that you want to be mindful. And I'm going to tell you a little bit of what that is. So when you're mindful, it's when you're asking the word, how are you doing? And someone says, I'm okay, it's really digging in a little deeper, right? It's so these are the things that people are struggling with right now. I've been hearing, you know, I can't really talk to anyone anymore. There's no one around me. We're all working from home. How do I deal with this? And this is coming from the leaders and the employees. So ask how you're doing. Get people to open up. Really, really mean it. Tell people how you're feeling. Um, Understand who your employees are. Let them know it's okay not to be okay. And if they're feeling stressed or anxiety, you could talk through that with them and give them some tips. So that's where work human comes in. That's where you want to find, like, when you have a meeting and you're beginning, have some humorous story, you know, or let people just talk like we kind of did when we came on. I had a meeting today and people started popping up their videos, which is very unusual. And they started talking, and I didn't want to end it, but we had to start the meeting, so I had to end it. But it was a great, it's a great way to just get to know who people are, and just finding positive, human, uplifting stories and kind of reshifting the focus a little bit. Now, if employees are working really hard and long hours, let them go on vacation, maybe send them a meal at home. We got all these DoorDash and Uber Eats. You know, a nice little meal coming to someone's home is great, or a gift card. Here, go buy lunch on me. You were working for 12 hours today. I know you don't have time for dinner. You know, these are little things that go so far away. And even if you don't have a lot of money right now, $25 dinner is not going to break the bank, in my opinion. And just, you know, try to avoid after hour emails if possible during a very challenging time for an employee. I know that's impossible for a lot of us because a lot of us are workaholics. We're type A, we run our own businesses, we're working nonstop, but your employees don't have to do that. And relax and recognize that. That's my next tip to you is, this is some funny stories that my husband and I have completely different jobs. He's a salesman and I'm stuck at a desk 9 to 5. And he literally cannot sit behind a desk because he's a salesperson. He travels a lot. So he literally takes his phone and his headphones and he walks every day almost 7 miles taking all his calls. And this led me to think about, wow, I would love to just walk and talk and have a meeting. So now we do these walk and talk meetings, like I'll do a coffee break meeting, and I'll just randomly call an employee and say, hey, you free? Let's chat. I'm going for a walk. You want to join me?
That's
And
good.
so, yeah, and people love it. And we don't talk about work. It's like, how are the kids? How's life? I know you got 2 kids in school. It's got to be crazy, you know? And so it's just another way to connect to people and just, again, helping people, right? That's what Mike had mentioned earlier. Michael, you mentioned helping people. This is a way to help people refocus their mind a little bit. And that brings me to the last thing is, and my next slide, because I love my next slide. It's all about the pictures here. So let's talk about the positive. All right, we don't have to dress for work anymore. We can show up in our underwear or our pajamas, and people find it humorous. We're showing up. We're working where we sleep in some cases. So the positive to that is no commute. We're working in our kitchens with our families. So what's the positive there? We're getting to know each other a little better. You know, we could bring our pets to work day without HR getting mad at us or the landlord. You know, so these are ways to kind of spin the negatives that are going on in our life in a very positive way. And the one thing that I think helps us when we go through this is to remember our world has changed. Yes, we're going to make it through. Yes, we're going to learn and grow from this because that's how we are. We learn and grow, and we're going to be stronger for it, and we're going to be smarter, and we're going to be better. So if you keep that perspective in mind, you don't need an end date because you know when it ends, things are going to be for the better. So that's how I'm going to end, and I'm going to stop sharing. And those are just things that when I shared these with my managers, they loved it and they started implementing it. And our culture is starting to slowly pick up on some of these ideas, and we got to keep it going. But these are some of the things we did when employees started to work from home to keep us engaged and together during a very stressful time.
Thanks, Donna. I want to ask you a couple of questions because I know these things come up. How do you manage issues if an employee has COVID-19? Do you tell the other employees? What do you say?
So usually what I do is if it's an employee who's working remote and has not had any contact with any other employee and their symptoms are mild, I don't let other employees know. We had one employee who went into the hospital and we didn't know if he was going to recover, and I did let employees know, and he gave me permission to. You have to be really careful not to release information on employees because of HIPAA laws. So we normally don't say if someone has the virus or if someone is sick. But if they're in the office with me or with other people, then I have to let them know that someone has come down with the virus. They were last in the office on X day. If you were in the office with them, you need to quarantine for 14 days and be tested. For that employee to come back to the office, they'd have to test negative. So those are some of the things that we do. There's a lot of guidance on that on the CDC, and it's probably changing on a weekly basis. Tiffany, I think you could vouch for that, right? So that's something that's really important. Don't release the information unless you have a signed note from the employee to do so, or if they're really, really sick and you don't know if they're going to make it, then I would say you want to do it just to give them encouragement and maybe just to a few key employees they're really, really close to.
So what are some other issues that business leaders should be aware of with work from home?
Definitely you have to be aware of the compliance laws, right? Because now you have employees working from home. So maybe you have workers' comp insurance for your office, but do you have it for the home office? So where does your workers' compensation end and begin with coverage? And I know that sounds a little weird, but it's important to really find out about that. And you can talk to your workers' comp carrier or an attorney to get more information on that. I'd also say there's a lot of sick leave laws out there now, depending on the state you're working in. New York is a hotbed for compliance of sick leaves, and if you're in the city, it's even worse. California and San Diego and San Francisco are two other ones that are very strong. So just know the laws, and if you don't, find them out. And there's, again, I think Tiffany's going to talk a little bit more about some of that, so I don't want to go into too much detail there. Ergonomic setup. A lot of people thought that they were just going to be home for 30 days, can manage a simple little laptop. Well, that's not working for a lot of us. So some companies, I know my company could not do this. We didn't have the resources financially, but a lot of companies provided at least one monitor and a keyboard. Many of our employees happen to have had monitors and keyboards, and a lot of employees came and took their chairs home because of the chair situation wasn't good for them at home. They were sitting on dining room table chairs that were hard and uncomfortable. So if you can, that's something that you could think about. Like, are your employees working in an ergonomical situation? You got it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so thank you so much for bringing up all that. I really would love to move to Tiffany now. And in your video, you said you would address some of the new legislation that affects the current employee environment and what business owners should be paying attention to and wary of. So can you tell us more about that?
Oh, yeah. So thanks again to Jerry for setting everything up. So I'm just piggybacking off of where Donna was leading us. Some of you all have attended my webinars before, so don't be surprised if you've heard it. That just means you're in the know. So I have let me share my screen here. So I just have a couple of slides to share with you. Let's see if it can play from start. There we go. So you can see the whole thing. Okay. So these, even if you don't have an employee, I like to tell people it is so important for you to know about this because your friends have businesses and they might have an employee. And surprisingly, or maybe not surprisingly, this is still brand new information to a lot of business owners. And a lot of it's because they had a lot of layoffs. Now they're ramping back up, but they need to get on board with the new laws. And so this is new stuff from the spring, but new if you haven't seen it. And so what we're talking about is new leave. Jerry, you have to rein me in if I go too long on this, because I could talk about it for a while. But it's the leave that was passed with the CARES Act. So what happened was they passed new leave, Family First Coronavirus Response Act, right after the CARES Act. And it was really to kind of look out for employees who have COVID or have to stay home with a child or a really close family member that actually contracted COVID. And they didn't want people to be penalized just because they got this COVID and lose all the leave that they would have for the rest of the year. They couldn't be sick again. So they felt like that was unfair because it's like a new thing that was spreading rapidly, at least back when this came out. Now it's spreading again, but not as rapidly. So these are the main highlights. I'm just gonna go over them really quickly. But if you have any questions or you want to know more about the specifics of this, you can actually, I think it's on the next page, I have an entire slideshow on my website. It's totally free. I did a webinar, but the written part's on the slides. And you can really dig into it, or feel free to follow up if you have more questions. But the general idea is that it's new leave that you are required by law to offer every employee, that's anybody that gets a W-2, they're an employee, and it's every size business. You cannot be too small for this. There's one exception, which is if giving this leave would put you out of business, and it's almost impossible to make that case because you get repaid for this leave. So what it is they set a max. So basically it's 2 weeks of leave, which is a lot of leave extra, on top of the regular leave they already had for somebody who's a regular 40-hour-a-week employee. But they can only utilize this leave if they actually get coronavirus, are diagnosed, or their child is. There's multiple tiers. That's the first tier. So if that happens and someone comes to you and says, I have coronavirus, I don't feel good, I'm not going to be in for a week, you as an employer, first of all, have to tell them that they can take this leave and then let them elect to. So the difference between this leave and regular leave is that it's capped at $500 a day. Meaning if you generally make over $500 a day and you go on Family First leave, you're not going to get as much money as you would get if you just went on used your regular leave. So sometimes somebody might elect to use their regular leave instead, but they have the right to use this leave first. Besides the cap, which doesn't really hit everybody, it's really just they get their same salary. So if they make under 500, they make $300 a day, that's what they would get. They wouldn't get extra. It's for 10 days, which is 2 weeks of 5 business days. And after that, they either have to go on their own leave, come back to work, or go on some version of disability. If you ever get somebody that's that sick, they're in the hospital, they're way past, the leave they have, it really behooves you as the employer to help them apply for disability. It doesn't hurt you. There's no negative for you, and it helps them. Everybody's been paying into it, but they need you to tell them what forms to fill out. So if you ever get in that situation, which sounds like Donna already has been there, it can happen quickly. You never know who to. So feel free to follow up with me or another business attorney to make sure you get that paperwork filled out right. It's very important for your employee. So the other way that someone could elect to use this Family First Response Act is if their child's school's closed due to COVID-19. So schools have been opening, closing, opening, closing. If they're the main care provider and they can't perform work from home while they're watching the kids, which it doesn't, basically as long as they're sole care provider at home, they can claim that they can't do work. They can go on this same 2-week leave if they only can get up to 2/3 of their salary or $200 a day. So if you're used to over $500 a day, it's really a disincentive. So it's not necessarily meant to replace your full salary. It's just sort of a way to help you get through if you got yourself into a position where you're usually working and now you have to take care of the kid. Now, both parents can't take this. You have to pick who's in charge that day. But if you both were employed by or W-2s, you could both claim it, so you could get 4 weeks out of it taking turns. The other one that goes along with this is the EFMLA. This is the Emergency Family and Medical Leave Act. This is totally different to regular FMLA, so just forget that. They switched it on its head. And in this one, the parent has to stay home. It's very similar to the second prong of Family First, but they get up to 10 weeks of leave, which means if their kid's school's closed for over a couple months, they get to stay home that whole time. So the government reimburses the employer for their expenses under this leave. So that's why it doesn't ultimately cost the employer. But the cost to the employer is the interim between when they have to give the money out to the employee and when they're going to get it back from the government. And then I'll just go to my second slide real quick. These are some other employer protections that you want to think of that are coming up. So we have, New York has an annual sexual harassment training. That's due by the end of the year. That's for New York only. And I offer that. So there's an Eventbrite if you want to sign up for it.
And Tiffany, this both slides we're going to be sending out to all the participants, right?
Oh yeah, and we're going to share them with you too. Yeah.
So you'll have this detail that you can look it over on your own time, and certainly you can call Tiffany and ask her questions about some things that you might have questions about. Tiffany, I have a question for you.
Sure.
How do you suggest notifying employees of new leave laws?
So there's a really good way to notify employees of the new leave laws. First of all, there's a poster that you have to hand out for the Family First Coronavirus Response Act, which actually bakes in EFMLA. So luckily, it's one poster for both. If they're not in the office, which most of them aren't, then what you can do is you just email it to everybody. But I highly suggest that you get them to either send you back an email that says confirmed so that you can prove they got it, or have them sign something and actually email you back. The reason is because anytime you do any of these employment procedures, it's the signature that's the gold. And the idea is that if anything ever happened, your employee was going to complain and tell you they didn't get the memo, you have their signature as evidence in court. Without that signature, the judge is going to look at you and blame you as the employer because you were supposed to know better. So the other things that you can do is you could get together with an attorney like me. What I have is a release that you can give your employees to sign, and it goes through all of the new coronavirus laws. So this is really more if you have to get together in person. And you can have your employees sign it, which shows they've been notified of the laws so that they have to follow them. Because a lot of times if something's going to happen in your workplace, it's going to come back to you. So you have to show the court that you did everything you could possible to avoid it, because ultimately corona could spread through anybody's workplace like wildfire. And to the extent somebody died, you're getting sued. The way to get out of the lawsuit is to show the steps that you took to do the best you could to operate. And so it's really on the employer. I tell them to document, put up your signs, document it, send out the notices, get the signature back. You're building your own case for how you're doing a good job. So that's a really good advice for anybody. If you don't have employees, tell your friends, because I don't think it can be said enough. And I don't think a lot of people are paying attention to those risks right now. So.
Thank you, Tiffany. We're going to move to Mark, and I know Tiffany has some other things that she'd probably like to tell you, but
I know, I talked too long.
all day, right? So, Mark, let's look at the IT aspect of working from home. Please share with our business leaders here what new risks they face and what they can be doing about it. Go ahead, Mark, please unmute yourself.
Oh, right. Thank you, everybody. And I'm trying to share my screen. I have the one handout or one page. Can you put me in as a co-host or enable me to share?
There.
All right. Oh, there we go. Okay. Yeah, there we go. It's the last one. Okay. Everybody can see now?
Yep.
Very good. So, you know, there's a lot going on, and thank you, my fellow panelists, for kind of, you know, leading into this with you know, the anxiety and the you know, all the legal aspects of this, and how do we kind of manage through all this. And from a cybersecurity standpoint, there's probably a lot of anxiety too for business owners and for everybody to you know, try to deal with the new reality of having, you know, 100% of your workforce, you know, working remote, right? And that's something that, you know, as I mentioned, you know, in the teaser video for this, that before March of 2020, you know, we really, you know, didn't see that. There were some companies, former employer of mine, City, that had a very robust work remote program, but this is different, right? And especially for smaller or mid-sized businesses, you know, this could be completely different, where they've gone from having people work remote just once in a while to all the time. So what I did on this one page handout is just to try to approach it from a risk management standpoint, which is breaking it down into the various risks and how to, you know, how to avoid some of those risks, how to reduce the risks, and if you can't reduce them, ways to, you know, reassign risk through insurance, and lastly then to accept the risk, but to know what your risks are. So you know, starting out, you know, everybody's going to be connecting, you know, primarily, hopefully, through a VPN, and that should include two-factor authentication. And for people that aren't familiar with that, it's basically a passcode that changes, really minute by minute. That there's a lot of apps. There's one by Microsoft. There's one by Google that augment your password. So you log into the VPN or the portal, and then you use your password, but then you're challenged with this second thing. It's usually something that runs on your, you know, runs right on your mobile device, like your cell phone. You type that number in, and you get in there. That is a critical security measure to have. And then so I'd like to just move on to a big question for companies that may not have been prepared. You know, one of the companies where I was, you know, working, they had just gone to a model where everybody had a laptop. So they were prepared from that standpoint. They didn't necessarily have enough capacity for all the employees, so they had to deal with that. But they had laptops for everybody. But a lot of companies aren't going to be in that position, and they're going to have to make trade-off decisions, and they should be aware of the, you know, the risks. So there's a lot of risk to having people using their own devices, along with just some of the technical aspects that device may not be capable of doing the job that the person was doing, and those types of things. But additionally, it it can contribute to promoting fraud and also liability for the company. So my recommendation on BYOD, or bring your own device, is to really shy away from that as much as possible, and that includes both laptop and phone. The company supplied device is always going to be, I believe, a better value for the employer overall. And if it's not something that can be done on day one, we're now 6 months, 7 months into this. It could be something that is a transition path. But I wouldn't recommend anybody to stay on that as a permanent thing. And I know a lot of companies in the past had a kind of an open policy about bring your own device. But with this this day and age, I would shy away from it. And so the fraud triangle is basically three things: a pressure from a financial pressure, or some other reason that's forcing people to consider something that may not be ethical, and then an opportunity. So if they're working remotely, they may have more opportunity than they did in the office to take documentation they shouldn't have access to, or to to commit some type of fraud. And the last one is rationalization, and that can come from oh, I'm using my company who doesn't even give me a laptop, they're making me use my own. So that they'll help to rationalize it. So those are really the big things that I wanted to touch on the most for the avoidance. I'm not going to go through all the other items on this, because I'm going to try to be a little bit more brief. But just focusing on awareness with your companies, and I think Donna and Tiffany made excellent point on awareness. Being aware of security aspects as well are really critical, and people should be mindful that in this paradigm shift, their remote access and remote networks are more of a target than they ever had. The hackers are smart, and they're targeting they're targeting people working from home. And the last two things just talk about is you've done everything to mitigate your risks, but I would recommend for just about every size business to consider getting a cybersecurity insurance policy. They're probably not too expensive to purchase, and that's going to protect you against anything else that these other avoidance and reduction can't cover you for. There's one example that I mentioned the other day when we were getting together for this panel, and that was an optometry association where their website was compromised. So all of the small business, all the small optometrist offices all across the country, when they connected into the organization, were infected with malware. And I was aware of it because I had a client that when this happened in 2016, where they got exposed to the malware. And I just saw that lawsuit. There was a lawsuit, and it was settled for $3.5 million. So that's a mid-size organization, national organization, but limited budget, and probably limited cybersecurity staff. And to some degree that was probably unavoidable, or it certainly it hit them, and they had a huge liability from that. So those are the ways to deal with it. The last thing is you're going to retain whatever risk is left after the insurance, and trying to take whatever measures you can. So what I would suggest is that for all small businesses and really businesses of every size, you conduct, regular cyber risk reviews. So you know what the risks are, you know where you want to invest. Like we talked about with the laptops, you're going to invest in laptops because that's lower risk, or you're going to provide cell phones. Anybody that's looking to do a risk review, outside technologies, my company does it, and there's a lot of good people out there that are doing those. So I would definitely recommend that as a best practice.
Thanks, Mark. There are a number of things that I know I could ask you, but I'm not sure we're going to have time for that right now. I do want to tell everybody that it is all about the people, right? And it's their success that matters. And this whole pandemic is pointing out just how valuable employees are. And there are some things to consider and some things to do in a remote working world. And so I'm going to share my screen.
Let me stop sharing here.
And share this. So employees are on this journey, and you as an employer are got managers in place to make this work. Certainly having empathy and caring around individual situations is exactly what Donna talked about, but not everybody is caring. Not everybody is a manager. Whoever managed employees before has this caring, emotionally intelligent component to their management style. It would be good if they did, but they don't. But now it's really pointed out that they're ineffective as managers because they are not being sensitive to what's going on, and that could certainly harm your company in terms of lawsuits or retaining good employees. So it's important to work with managers about that, and certainly with kids at home and with spouses, and sometimes sharing computers. If they're not buying computers like Mark has suggested from inside each person's company. And then there's space arrangements in a home where everybody's sharing the kitchen table or whatever. You really have to allow for flexible work arrangements. Sometimes parents will take one will take the morning shift and one will take the afternoon shift because they got kids at home. Somebody's got to be available to watch the kids or fix the meals. And then sometimes they're doing work before the kids get up or after the kids go to bed. And so that kind of flexible work arrangement has to be worked out, especially if you've got some people in your office that you want to collaborate and have meetings with. You've got to find out how people's work arrangements and work timing jives with other people so that you can have meetings occasionally where more than one person is involved. You have to change from time management to task management. And I find this with doing this with my New York City managers, the ones that I work with under the New York City contract. They've always been managed where you come in at 9, you do your day's job, and you leave at 5 or whatever your hours are. And you're putting in time, and your manager is watching that you're using your time to get things done. But it's time management as opposed to task management. You're going to work different times during the day, and you are going to have a job to get done, and you're going to get a job done maybe by a deadline. But you're going to, as the employee, choose when and how to do that job based on your availability and what you have to coordinate with your spouse and with the other members of your home. And so task management is getting to be more and more what people need. There's some advantages, like you could have a much more geographically diverse team now that you're all working remotely. And in fact, next week I'm going to Ohio, and I have some different things that I'm going to do, and I can just as easily do them from Pennsylvania as from Ohio. And I think a few people here have moved in different places. So when you're online, you've got all that capability. There are techniques for managing and team building remotely. For instance, if I were to hold up this and say, this is something that I picked up on a trip and it really is meaningful for me, and I can share something about that trip and why it is taken a priority in my life, then you know more about me than you used to know. And so one of the techniques that managers do is they say, everybody bring an object that they can hold up in front of the screen and display why it's important to them. Or everybody come dressed for Halloween today. Or let's have a celebratory glass of your favorite adult beverage and bring it with you, and we'll have a cocktail party online. Those kinds of things have been happening more and more. And then there's things that you can do around going into breakout rooms so that you can take someone, take a group of 20 people and split into 4 breakout rooms and give each different group of 5 a different aspect of a job to do, with one person being a scribe and a spokesperson. And then bring them all together, and then you've got a lot of work done by all those 20 people, and each of those 5 people kind of reports on the job, the findings of their group. And it gives you a chance to help a person maybe who doesn't speak up as much to take a leadership role. And you can use various techniques like that to manage the team, to manage the work that gets done by the team, to manage the introverts on the team, to manage the extroverts on the team. And so you as a manager are looking at all those things to build collaboration. In fact, these techniques actually cause a refocus on better management. So you never want to waste a good crisis to develop as a leader. And so this is a chance for you to shine, and it's a chance for your leadership to get that much better. One of the things I want to point out there is accountability. So even though we're being sensitive to our employees and to all the things going on around them and the uncertainty and fear that they're feeling, I as a manager still have to make sure that their work gets done, that there is some results at the end of the day. And yeah, I'm going to cut them some slack, but I am going to hold them accountable too. And that is part of the coaching conversation of, when do you think you can get this job done? And you can tell me what your schedule and what you anticipate is going to be in the way. And then, but how can I hold you to it so that we're managing the project so in the long run that the office gets its work accomplished? So these are the kinds of things that are important when you're managing an office. And I'm going to send this out, and this just is my contact information and some things that I offer to companies. And it really is focusing a lot on remote team management at this point. I'm going to stop the share. And I see there were 5:53, so we only have a couple minutes left. There's been a number of questions we could have asked. We haven't really had too much time to ask. Let's see, we have a question in the chat window. Shouldn't you tell employees who may have come in contact with the infected person to get tested and self-quarantine without revealing the identity of the infected person? And Donna, I'm going to let you take that question.
Yes, I thought I made that clear, and I'm sorry if I did not. You do not want to reveal the identity of the employee. You just simply want to say, based on the day you were working and the fact that we have knowledge of an employee being infected, you now need to, under the CDC guidelines or the New York State guidelines, or whatever guidelines you want to use, you will have to be quarantined for 14 days. Some people will have to close their offices down for 14 days and require people to get tested, but you do not reveal the name of the employee. The only time I would suggest revealing the name of the employee is when someone is severely ill and employees will be really angry at you that they did not have a chance to call that employee and wish them, goodwill or goodwill and get well wishes and stuff. But again, I wouldn't do it unless I had permission from the family or the employee.
Thank you. And we're going to take one more question. Mark mentioned in his talk about fraud, and that's computer fraud, but there are other kinds of fraud also. So Tiffany and then Donna, you want to speak a little bit about different kinds of fraud that business owners really need to be aware of?
Oh, sure. So when it comes to employment, with people working from home and things, you want to keep an eye on like Donna was saying, with them reporting their hours and things. So the bigger the company, the more that you can have people basically stealing from your company, not accurately reporting their time, which I think is sort of one of the biggest challenges. And then another is if people have had layoffs, there could be fraud related to people applying for unemployment. And that's a really big one that's around these days. So I'll let Donna see if she wants to touch on any others.
Yeah, I was just going to say the unemployment fraud, even if you don't have people who are unemployed, there's very quickly, there was a breach many years ago, a lot of data breaches that happened. And the people who took those identities are now using this as an opportunity to collect unemployment. So even though you may not have let anybody go, you get an unemployment claim across your desk from an employee who's active sitting right across from you. That could be a breach of their identity. So you want to let them know about it, and you want to call unemployment and let them know so that your experience rate is corrected and you don't have that issue. And there's actually, every state has a unemployment fraud hotline. So you just go online and look it up.
Yeah, thank you. And I understand that in the world of IT, those hackers that are doing phishing, they, the hackers have followed people right to the home because that's the weakest link to get entry to a system. Phishing is one of those techniques, right? What else might there be, Mark?
Well, so yeah, along with phishing, which is really the number one attack strategy for hackers. Believe it or not, if you look at the statistics year over year for the last couple of years, it's been the number one. But they'll also try similar techniques with texting. They'll try a man in the middle or try to impersonate an executive with your company. That we've seen that, and then additionally they'll try to call employees and try to get information over the phone, trying to pretend as though they were a help desk or some other affiliation. So the phone scams are there. And then the last one that I would mention in that category is more back to the online. You'll see the hackers will try to impersonate a company's portal or login website. So if they're using a login screen, you'll see an identical login screen created that looks just like company ABC, but it's actually a hacker front. And so you try to log in with your username and password, and then they're going to capture that, and then try to use that to to use those credentials to then access, what they shouldn't be accessing.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
So I think we're going to wrap it up now. Thank you, Donna and Tiffany and Mark. Thank you, everyone, for your participation. We look to see you on November 17th when we address security and crisis management. The Eventbrite invitation will be posted shortly, so you can register. Of course, again, there is no cost, and you'll hear from several members of the Resource Referral Center who are active in that space. Please be on the lookout for the recording of tonight's session, the handouts from our panelists, and our survey. And please answer our survey questions. We want to make these events valuable. And if you'd like a referral to Tiffany or Mark or me, please say so in the survey. And if you don't get the survey, just follow up with me with my email that's on the jerry@drivingimprovedresults.com. I want to thank you. And I want to say good night and applause to all.
Yep. Thanks to my fellow panelists. Good job, everybody.
Nice work.
I have to tell you, I was mesmerized by the whole thing. Mesmerized. Fantastic job.
Thanks.
Thanks, Mike.
I really enjoyed it too. Thank you all very much. I wasn't on camera, but I was listening.
Thanks, Joanne.
You were listening,
Nice
okay.
to see you. You're in Florida, and so is Tiffany. I think
Yeah.
that's right.
Where are you
Savannah.
at? Where are you at?
I'm in Georgia.
Oh, you're
Savannah.
Georgia?
Okay.
Nice. Not
Yeah.
far.
We all look like we're set right now to walk around the corner and have spaghetti.
Yeah.
I would love that. I would love that.
Some
You're
spaghetti.
making me hungry.
Yeah, I'm
With
hungry.
meatballs, I hope.
Mhm.
Hi,
A
Jerry.
real good sauce, not junky sauce.
And a little good Parmesan.
Jerry, this is DK. I'm out in Amagansett. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm so glad you could join us, and it's lovely to see your face, even if it's not your actual face.
It's my daughter's favorite photo of me. My actual face hasn't been shaven in about 10 days. And
Oh.
Oh, boy.
I'm not feeling presentable. So those comments about how you cope with things really helped me quite a bit.
Good. It made you feel less abnormal, like everybody's just like you, right?
Oh yeah. Misery loves company. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thanks for joining us. I'm glad you were able to make it.
I think Jerry has set a new bar with regard to these presentations, because right now people are able to get a hold of you and work with you through her referral system. She says, if you want a referral, we got a referral for you.
Right.
And we can make people available. I know a lot of people that I speak to on a daily basis that would be interested in this, but I've got to get them referred. And Jerry does that. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. And Mike has got lots of contacts, which is helping to make all this possible. So thank you.
Not the spaghetti.
Yeah. I'm doing gumbo with smoked sausage. I smoked the sausage yesterday.
Oh
And
man, oh man.
Wait, you're right around the corner from me, technically. I could just hop in the car and drive over, you know.
on over. Yep.
I'll wear my mask, I promise.
Big backyard.
Right here.
Plenty of room down there.
We just leave containers at the front door. I mean, we could do the handoff without, contact.
Yeah, that's it. Contactless.
And I'll leave a container. I mean, I believe in recycling. So.
Contactless gumbo. I think that's a.
Let's all stay in contact. That's through Jerry. Let's all stay in contact through Jerry.
Well, everybody's going to be on our contact list for the next
Okay, all right, but let's
presentation. Yeah. So just keep coming to these presentations, and you'll keep running into each other. And certainly, you can certainly ask me if you want anybody. I don't want to share anybody's data without their permission, but if you want to contact each other, I'm happy to make the connection happen so that everybody can have permission to do that.
All right. I got to drop off. It was great speaking.
Okay.
Great seeing everyone. Take
Yeah,
care.
it was really
Thank
great.
you so much, Donna. Thank you
Yeah,
so
like-
much.
Good night, all.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Good night,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Good night, Jerry.
Bye.
Good night, Michael.
Good night. No more provolone? No. Eddie, thanks for coming, Eddie.
Oh, my pleasure. It was great. Very great topics and fascinating.
I've got to run, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay.
Thanks, Mike.
Bye, Jerry.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.